Nancy Guthrie has left people searching for answers for years, but the reality behind her story is far more surprising than most expect. What if everything you've heard only scratched the surface? What if the truth has been hiding in plain sight all along? Every year, countless people try to piece this mystery together, yet it remained unresolved until now. In this deep dive, we'll uncover overlooked details, connect the missing pieces, and reveal a clearer picture that reshapes the entire story. The core mystery explained. For years, the story of Nancy Guthrie has captured attention, shrouded in puzzling contradictions. At the heart of the mystery lies a situation that defies straightforward explanation, something that kept investigators and curious minds alike searching for a solid conclusion. Despite numerous reports and circulating theories, the central question remained: what exactly happened to Nancy Guthrie? The publicly available information has been fragmentary, and that lack of clarity fueled speculation. What makes this case so compelling is not just the mystery itself but the way each piece of information seems to twist the narrative unexpectedly. Public interest grew largely because the facts shared initially didn't line up with surviving evidence, leaving many to wonder if the truth was being concealed or misunderstood. Yet, even amid the speculation, a critical element remained consistently overlooked, one that would eventually change everything once revealed. The puzzle was never just about missing details, it was about how those details connected to a bigger, less obvious truth. Often, mysteries appear complicated because we're not asking the right questions. That's exactly the case with Nancy Guthrie, where the most important aspect was hidden in plain sight, waiting for a fresh perspective. The story developed from initial news reports and local accounts, which appeared straightforward but transformed into an ongoing mystery that perpetually emerged in different online communities. People have tried to piece together the narrative from conflicting sources, resulting in multiple potential motives and scenarios. The mystery remained unsolved because its central element contained a fundamental detail that investigators initially chose to overlook. Personal loss and public fascination with the situation create a duality that cultural beliefs and stereotypes use to obscure actual meaning. The media presented Nancy through dramatic aspects, which led to confusion about her actual situation. The truth became hidden because people chose to believe existing explanations rather than question them. Stay with me, because soon, the surprising facts that settled this puzzle for good will come into view. But first, we need to understand who Nancy Guthrie really is beyond the headlines. Who is Nancy Guthrie? Nancy Guthrie is more than a name attached to an unsolved mystery. She was a person whose life and circumstances became intertwined with a series of events that sparked widespread curiosity. To grasp why her story resonated so deeply, it helps to understand her background. Nancy was known locally as a quiet individual with a closely knit circle of family and friends. Her life, while not extraordinary, reflected the everyday challenges and hopes of many people in her community. She had connections to a modest town where news traveled fast and people remembered details vividly. Nancy's relationships with those around her were a mix of support and complexity, shaped by social dynamics typical of small-town life. These relationships played a key role in how stories about her began to spread, sometimes with embellishments or misunderstandings. Nancy's background is also marked by events that, on the surface, suggested normalcy but beneath hinted at deeper struggles. These elements created a contrast that made her case stand out. The more ordinary her public image, the more intriguing the questions became when inconsistencies appeared. Understanding the person behind the headlines means seeing beyond rumors and focusing on concrete details from her life. The mystery about Nancy exists because her story has been told through different versions, combining factual information with emotional content. Her family's viewpoints, together with community rumors and media coverage, created narrative elements that both clarified and confused the story. The truth becomes accessible only through analyzing these elements. The wider public became interested in Nancy's case because it demonstrated how trust, transparency, and legal matters affect society. The universal ideas present in her mystery attracted individuals from outside her community who started conversations about dealing with uncertain situations and experiencing loss. Her story demonstrates how people behave in situations that lack clear information. They start making guesses when no evidence exists. A clear view of Nancy's background serves as a foundation for questioning the assumptions built on these narratives. The core of every mystery contains a real person whose story must be told in complete truth. Early theories and misconceptions. Shortly after Nancy Guthrie's story became public, various theories emerged seeking to explain the confusing circumstances. These early ideas ranged from straightforward possibilities to more elaborate scenarios, each attempting to fill gaps with answers that made sense to the people involved. However, many of these theories relied heavily on assumptions rather than verified facts, which only deepened the mystery. One common misconception was that Nancy's situation resulted from foul play, an explanation that naturally grabs attention but was never conclusively supported by evidence. This theory spread widely because it offered a clear cause for uncertainty, satisfying the human desire for neat conclusions. Despite intensive searches and inquiries, no concrete evidence emerged to back this assumption. Nonetheless, it remained popular as people struggled to make sense of the unusual facts. Another early theory focused on a voluntary departure or personal choice, suggesting Nancy had reasons unknown to others for withdrawing from her environment. While this possibility could explain some aspects, it conflicted with testimonies from friends and family who described her as unlikely to abandon everything without communication. This contradiction highlights how incomplete narratives can lead to multiple, often opposing conclusions. Semantic confusion added to the problem, as some details were misinterpreted or exaggerated over time. Minor discrepancies in timelines or descriptions were taken as evidence of deliberate deception or conspiracy. This pattern is common in mysteries, where small inconsistencies fuel suspicion rather than skepticism. The result was a proliferation of rumors that spread quickly and became entrenched in public imagination despite lacking factual support. In recent months, the rise of true crime podcast culture has seen a renewed interest in cold cases. Shows like The Retrievals and Noble have dominated charts in 2025 to 2026, reminding us how easily misinformation spreads when official channels stay silent. Nancy's case followed that exact pattern. Silence created a vacuum, and speculation rushed in to fill it. As Nancy's story unfolded, certain events added layers of complexity that deepened the mystery. A seemingly ordinary timeline became tangled with conflicting accounts and unexpected developments. Small contradictions between witness statements and official records began to pile up, making it difficult to discern what truly happened. One pivotal event involved discrepancies in reported sightings of Nancy during the days surrounding the core incident. Some witnesses claimed to have seen her in places that contradicted official timelines, while others recalled details that didn't align with documented movements. These conflicting accounts raised doubts about the reliability of key testimonies. Adding to the confusion was the handling of physical evidence, which seemed incomplete or poorly documented. Important items connected to Nancy were recorded inconsistently, and some were even reported as lost during the early stages of the inquiry. This lack of thorough evidence management undermined confidence in the investigation. Interpersonal dynamics within Nancy's community also played a role. Friends, family members, and acquaintances offered conflicting recollections, sometimes influenced by emotional biases or protective instincts. These mixed perspectives introduced contradictions that investigators had to navigate carefully. Investigations that followed. Following the confusing early events, several investigations took place aiming to untangle the web around Nancy's story. These efforts involved multiple agencies and individuals committed to finding definitive answers. While initial examinations struggled with limited evidence and contradictory testimonies, over time, more structured approaches emerged to bring clarity. Official inquiries began promptly but faced obstacles, including incomplete documentation and uncooperative witnesses. Law enforcement officials worked diligently but were often stymied by the fragmented nature of the information they received. Still, their work set the groundwork for subsequent efforts by establishing key facts. Parallel to official lines of inquiry, community members and independent researchers showed remarkable initiative. They collected personal stories, reviewed public records, and compared various accounts to identify inconsistencies. These grassroots efforts often brought fresh perspectives and uncovered details overlooked by formal investigations. Technological advances during the course of these investigations also played a significant role. Improvements in forensic techniques and data analysis provided tools that earlier efforts lacked. Re-examinations of physical evidence with updated methods yielded new insights. Digital reconstruction of timelines and communications helped clarify certain contradictions. New evidence emerges. Years after the initial investigations, new evidence began to surface that challenged everything previously believed about Nancy Guthrie's case. This fresh information wasn't the result of a sudden breakthrough, but rather a painstaking re-examination of overlooked details. One particularly revealing development came from newly uncovered communications and records tied to Nancy's last known whereabouts. These documents provided a clearer context around her movements and state of mind, allowing investigators to piece together a more coherent timeline. What had initially seemed like contradictions now made sense when placed within a broader framework. Meanwhile, witness statements that had been dismissed or deemed unreliable were revisited with a fresh perspective and cross-referenced against each other. Patterns emerged where previously there had been chaos. Some testimonies aligned in unexpected ways, shedding light on key moments that had gone unexplained. Physical evidence once considered irrelevant was re-examined using improved techniques such as enhanced imaging and chemical analysis. Items related to Nancy's personal effects offered subtle but significant details. In particular, these findings suggested alternative scenarios that hadn't been fully considered. Community involvement played a role as well, with renewed interest leading some residents to share previously withheld information or forgotten memories. The process of collecting and authenticating collective memory demonstrated its potential value as a research tool. Putting the pieces together. Bringing together the new evidence with existing information required a methodical and open-minded approach. Investigators, analysts, and community members collaborated closely to reconcile the disparate pieces, weighing each detail carefully. This process wasn't about forcing a predetermined conclusion but allowing the facts to shape a coherent narrative. One breakthrough came from reconstructing Nancy's final days with enhanced chronological accuracy. Aligning communication records, witness statements, and physical evidence created a unified timeline that resolved many prior inconsistencies. This clearer sequence dispelled earlier confusion caused by overlapping or contradictory reports. Reconsidering motives and context was equally important. Previously dominant theories focused on dramatic causes, but this fresh analysis revealed more subtle but powerful influences shaping the situation. Personal relationships, social pressures, and hidden challenges in Nancy's life emerged as key factors. Understanding these human elements provided depth that purely factual accounts had missed. The re-examination also highlighted how biases and assumptions had skewed interpretations. What was initially seen through a lens of suspicion transformed into a more empathetic understanding. This shift allowed investigators to separate fact from speculation and discard misleading narratives. The truth revealed. After years of confusion, conflicting accounts, and careful investigation, the truth behind Nancy Guthrie finally came into focus, and it wasn't what most people expected. What once felt like a baffling mystery turned out to be a chain of misunderstandings, shaped by human error and miscommunication rather than anything dramatic or sinister. A key breakthrough came from understanding Nancy's personal circumstances leading up to the events. Challenges she faced, largely unknown at the time, began to explain behaviors that once seemed inconsistent. Her story shifted from something suspicious to something deeply human, marked by resilience under pressure. The investigators constructed a timeline proving that many witness statements contained accurate information, but their statements lacked full coverage of the events. The previously existing contradictions represented various ways to view the same occurrences. The community served as the primary force that created the situation. The story spread because people believed untrue information and made incorrect assumptions while reacting to events with their actual feelings. The forensic reanalysis process established essential information while proving previous theories to be incorrect. The scientific research, instead of discovering new evidence, brought clarification to previously misunderstood topics, which resulted in the investigation moving forward. Nancy's case demonstrated a fundamental truth: Incomplete narratives create obstacles to discovering the actual truth, while teamwork and dedicated slow thinking eventually lead to understanding. In an era of viral misinformation, where the recent Karen Reed case and the ongoing Idaho student murders trial have shown how quickly false narratives spread, Nancy Guthrie's story serves as a powerful reminder. The real lesson: don't settle for half-told narratives. Nancy Guthrie's story reminds us that patience, and a willingness to look again, can uncover truths hiding beneath the surface. If this breakdown gave you a new perspective, hit like, subscribe, and stick around, then tap into the next video on your screen to keep the discoveries going.